Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it. So, welcome to The First Turn. I am Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today, we are talking about, guess what? Warhammer.
What? There was a video game that came out this week.
There was. Unfortunately, my efforts to get my setup working for it failed spectacularly because I had parts not show up on time, and it just didn't work out. So I'll be playing that here in a couple weeks.
I mean, its official release date is the 9th, so...
True. Yeah. Which I think is funny that they did that, right? Because if you can buy like an advanced copy of it, a higher trim copy of it to get the ability to play
5 days early.
Like, I don't know. It seems weird. It seems weird to me.
And I sat there and talked about it with a couple of our friends, and I was like, so I bought the gold version so that I could get it on the 4th or whatever. And then I was like, you realize we spent $30 extra to get it 5 days early, and some Ultramarines trim, and they were like...
To be fair, you also get the season pass for it. So you don't get nothing.
You do.
Get. I mean, if you were planning on playing it longer than just this weekend or this week, it's probably worth it because you'll get the next expansion or whatever for free.
Well, as far as I've played about 5 hours in it, and I think it's been great. And from what we've seen, it's been mega successful. People love it. They waited an extra year to release it so that it didn't come out like some beta game that we then just get DLC to get the real content. It's like, nope, this game's going to be as is.
There was another game with Space Marines versus Space Marines. I think it was only PvP that completely flopped.
Oh.
That was like open access, early access for a long time. And it was like Marines versus Chaos Space Marines. And it was only PvP, kind of arena style. And it just kind of went away. I can't remember what it was called now. But it just kind of like closed up shop, disappeared. Kind of thing. I think the year that they gave this game not only gave it some polish, but it also gave it maybe the ability to develop some other game modes to appease everybody, right? Because that's always kind of a risk, right? So if it's like, well, we're going to make this game all multiplayer PvP, it's like, it's not deep enough. There's not enough to do. We're only going to make this game a single-player story mode, experience. Right? Like, well, there's no replayability. There's nothing to do after the game is completed, which I don't say is a problem, but I'm an old timer, right? Like I love offline games. I don't like to play with people.
But if it is offline, like you need a story that's either a non-story with sandbox mode, like a grand strategy game, or has some choose your own adventure to make it replayable, things you unlock with each difficulty setting, whatever. If it's a linear story, which Space Marine kind of is, then you would have run out of juice after that one time through the story mode.
Well, you got 10, 12 hours of play. I mean, that's I think how long the first one was. It was 10 or 12 hours of play, and then it was a good 10 or 12 hours.
It was.
But then it was after that, it's like, okay, what's next? PvP mode? Pass.
Right.
You know, I'm not interested. This actually has another mode that isn't PvP, but it is multiplayer.
Co-op.
Can be.
Yeah.
Right? Where you do sort of your... choose a mission, start it, play through it to the end, complete it, get rewards, start a new one, kind of mode. Your Left 4 Dead or your like Vermintide style mode, which is like that'll create some playability.
Those unlock a resource economy that you can use to level up and upgrade your character, and then each difficulty brings a new one, and there's 6 of them to start. Operations, I think they call them, and you can do them on your own or with buddies. And then that is going to be something they release. They said like 2 or 3 at a time, new ones down the road that they just keep.
Which is sweet.
Yeah.
So like I'm on board for the whole.
They feel like a campaign mission,
right?
But now it's just.
But now you can also you're not like locked into that story, right? Like you're not locked into having to do Titus's story of reclaiming the planet kind of thing. Now you can have all kinds of other scenarios and customize your Marine, and you could have 3 different chapters. You know, you and your buddies all choose different ones, playing together to do the mission. Different classes, even. You know, like it's. I think it was clever. I think it was.
And it's firing off well. It's been mostly good reviews. As of this morning, there were 55,000 on Twitch watching it being played, and that's just people who got it early. So, I think it's a big hit so far.
Yeah, I had heard that people say that it sets the bar for at least for this IP. games in the Warhammer universe is. It's like, this is the best one.
Yeah, if you're going to do third or first person shooters now, they've got to be like this.
Which I hope they do more, right? Like, it's as cool it is to be a Space Marine and actually feel like a Space Marine. I mean, like, you can go see clips online right now, people playing, and you're wading through hundreds of Termagants and
Zangors and
lictors and all this crazy stuff like that, and you're like killing them all on your own. You feel like a Space Marine. You feel like a movie Marine, which is great. Hopefully like they said, they learn something from this and kind of extrapolate this to other things. I want to see something like this in the world of Sigmar.
Well, imagine if you're a witch hunter and you're hunting out a Flesh Eater Quartz vampire or whatever in a city.
Any of that,
like this.
Yeah. So yes, I think it's a good point. It does kind of set a bar. It does set a precedent for what can be accomplished.
They could even use the same engine instead of Termagants and Zangors. You've got ghouls,
right,
and zombies, and
I mean, when they did Dark Tide, it was basically a skin on Vermintide, but then with some enhancements and some changes, because that game was very shooty heavy, less fighting. Whereas Vermintide's the opposite. Your shooting resources were very limited. You were mostly sword or axe or shield or whatever kind of melee weapon you had.
And this does incentivize you to kind of specialize one or two of the classes to be your faves,
right? Which
because you get limited resources as rewards.
Also, it's like, hey, do you have a favorite chapter? Of course you do. Play like that chapter,
and pick whatever you think is cool, because it's funny is if you look at some of the top content creators for it, each one will tell you which class is the best, and they've each picked a different one.
Right.
So just whatever, play what you want.
Which I think is funny, because it's like, this isn't objectively a definitive answer, right? Like it's like this is
and it's not even like it's a competitive format. You're just
and
playing.
That's the thing. Oh my gosh,
you're just playing with buddies.
Just the idea of looking up a class or build guide, if you're not trying to hit like the highest reaches of a difficulty challenge rating, like if you're trying to hit like, I want to play the hardest difficulty and clear the hardest levels, whatever, it's like you might need to optimize some builds.
Sure.
And you might even need to look up a guide because you're not going to figure it out yourself. But like going into the game and playing it for the first time and looking up a build guide
following that to the T, because you don't want to just pick for yourself. You're afraid of wasting resources or something. Yeah, play.
It's silly. I mean, it's people do it for everything though. When Baldur's Gate 3 first came out, there were like build guides to do the classes and stuff. And it's like, it's not a hard, but it's also a role-playing PvE game.
Yeah.
There is a lot of forgiveness. Like, you can muddle your way through that game without optimizing one iota.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, why even?
It's so think of like the difference between that and like the Diablo franchise, where even though you're PvE, because you're with a group of people against the AI, you're trying to like, okay, I've only got this many months in this season to get all the best items for my thing, but to do that I have to get through Rift whatever.
Right.
So you do have to optimize. There's a goal to optimization.
But you've got multiple other things you're working with there.
Yes.
It's your time constraints for the season.
Yep.
It's pushing into higher difficulty levels of things. And there is something to be said for, if you're trying to do those kind of things, certain spells are just straight up better than others.
Yeah.
Because you know what didn't work for a wizard is spectral blades for forever. Your little short range force blade attack.
Right.
That spell was awful when you could take like lightning bolt, lightning zap, whatever the chain lightning thing was as your builder. It's like they do the same thing. They're both short range, but one's just flat out better.
Yep. Well, and then you have to take your party into consideration. Like it doesn't make sense in Space Marine, for example, if 3 people go in as snipers. Like they're not going to get a whole lot done.
Yes, it does.
Sure, it does. They're a Raven Guard unit of.
If I were gonna, because I plan on doing my Raven Guard in there, but I think one of the classes I think was a Vanguard class, was a Reaver, where it was like short range, sort of rapid fire SMG plus close combat knife kind of thing.
Yes.
That's what I would do.
It's very good.
That's what I would do.
Very good.
You know what? It doesn't even matter to me.
I think
I'd do it anyway, even if it wasn't good.
I think they're all very good. Yeah. I've watched people use just about any combination, and they're having fun in there. So, and I was thinking Iron Hands was always my Legion, despite them having arguably the worst Primarch. And that's like, well, there was 2.
Oh, why? Because he died?
He just was a hothead who died before the war started.
Yeah.
And
some might say he started the war.
he maybe started the fire.
Yeah.
But like there's two builds that I think would work for them. They've got the heavy build, which is heavy long range weapon where you plant your feet and shoot.
Sure.
And then the other one's the bulwark, which is a guy with a
Just shield
and a fist.
Yeah,
You go in there. And I was like, either of those would be
Yep.
perfect.
But see, I would want to go like not optimal heavy weapon build either, because I saw there's like a plasma cannon. It's like, nah, heavy bolter.
There's heavy bolter.
It's like, it doesn't matter.
But that's just it. Each weapon has its own like upgrade tree that not only makes the weapon better, but does stuff in your party. And it's like, so you can make any weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter. You can make it all work.
Yep.
Potentially. I'm sure there will be one that's slightly marginally better than the rest. That is going to be the meta build.
Right.
Which I hate calling things that. But regardless.
Yep.
I'm glad it's being received well. I'm glad it's a lot of fun. I'm glad it's polished. It's good. I mean, obviously, there's bugs with every game, especially during a new release.
When that many people jump in it right away.
Because I had seen some issues with because you can't test a game on every single rig possible. So I've seen like some performance issues. I've seen some physics problems. I've seen some texture issues, stuff like that.
Well, and most of that will be on PC and not console, because console hardware is known. PC is as varietous as it gets, so they just can't accommodate everything.
Yep.
But visually, it's a great game. Sound-wise, it's a great game. When I played it, I have annoying neighbors, so I had to put headphones on. But yeah, still sounds great.
I feel like that increases the immersion of it.
It did.
You're there in it.
I mean, I like my room shaking, but yeah, that's fine.
But aside from Space Marine, which is great, we also had pre-orders this weekend for the new Skaven. At least call it the first wave.
First wave. The Blood Angels have arrived. Their stuff, their box set
Blood Angels are here, but which is a little early. I didn't expect it to come that early, honestly.
Right. And it's just the special version. I don't think we have their supplement on its own yet.
Okay. So it's a box set that comes with Sanguinary Guard, not the Sanguinor.
It doesn't even have the Golden Boys. It's all Death Company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A Death Company box with Lamardes and Asterath. Okay. Interesting.
And then it's got...
so that's how they were choosing to break it up into two releases.
Right. Okay. It's got Assault Intercessors on foot and with jump packs, and then an upgrade sprue that makes them Death Company.
Gotcha.
And then one of the coolest things, this is a side thing, but I love that they're doing this now. It includes a transfer sheet that has like every known Blood Angel successor chapter. So if you want to play Angels and Carmen or whatever, you can get those decals and make your guys.
Interesting.
Kind of neat. Yeah.
So, I mean,
and they have eviscerators and stuff
too. How much
too.
does that cost to print an extra thing on a transfer sheet? Yep. Why not? That's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Okay. Yeah. So that was out today.
But that is
the Skaven one, which is pretty much everything we've seen so far for them.
And you know what surprised me about that is theirs is not a box set. Theirs is like, here was every kit coming out on its own right away.
Right.
Which I like, which I think's really neat.
Because we already had a starter box that came with the core stuff, and I wouldn't necessarily want another starter box unless it was like a holiday box that has a lot of the new stuff in it together. Because I mean the holidays are coming up here in a few months. They might release something similar to that. A Skaven Battle Force contain a lot of the new stuff. I'd be down for that. I might even, because I've got a lot of the stuff in metal already. I might actually wait to see if they come out with a value box later for the holidays.
I know their Warp Fiend Spearhead is coming out also.
So they're reboxing it with all the same models except for the clan rats are being swapped out for the new ones instead of the old ones.
That's pretty cool.
Which I think is funny that they didn't cut the Grey Seer sprue properly to release that on its own, because it's shared parts with the engineer, I think, and so they couldn't package it separately cleanly. So it's got the old Grey Seer model in it.
That was the Tyranids had that problem with the Neuro Tyrant and one of the other bugs.
The gas bug, the one that eats
Psychophage.
Psychophage.
Yeah, and so they just had to release them as a 2-pack kind of.
Necrons did that. They had the Canoptic Command Squad that had the Reanimator in it, and 2 other models because they didn't think to put them on their own sprues so they can release them. They're all just together in a 3-pack.
Well.
It's funny. But so the Skaven stuff is coming. We've seen a little bit of the rules be leaked because some information embargoes have been lifted, so we've been able to see some reviews and some actual data sheets.
I know you're going to have more thoughts than me because this is one of your main armies. So I'll say this quick, what they've already shown us on Warcom. So They said not much has changed from the index to their Battletome, but the stuff they've shown us is already not what was a part of their index.
Right.
So, but that's because there's a bunch of new models. And
Right.
so they are getting new stuff, and they are getting new ways to do their things.
Yep.
So I think some people panicked about that, hearing that statement.
Really,
but
they didn't change the data sheets for the existing stuff.
Yep.
Which I have mixed thoughts on that, because there were some things that they could have used this opportunity to change because they weren't either good enough or they kind of missed the mark on a little bit. One of them is the storm vermin, which are the armored rats, the fighty ones.
Yep.
They didn't change them, but they gave them brand new kit where the models are like
gorgeous,
60% larger.
Yeah.
Because they're on bigger bases, they're big, and they're hulking rats now. But they didn't change their rules at all. Like, these rats visually look like they should be a lot bigger and more impressive than a clan rat, and they're the exact same stats. Like, it's just kind of odd.
Didn't they show that new Baldy McWhat's-its-name Lord gives something to Storm Vermin?
He does.
Yeah.
He just has an aura that they're just +1 to hit. Or
I wonder though if like...
But they're still like, they're 1 wound guys.
Yep.
With a 4-up save, who are bodyguard, quote unquote, but because they're 1 wound, most other bodyguard units in the game are more durable. Like, look at Saurus Guard, right? If these guys just had 2 wounds and had the bodyguard ability, I think we'd be fine. But the fact that they're like...
Do we know in person how big their models are, though?
Well, they said they're on 28 mil bases now.
So that's human.
So they went to a bigger size base.
Yeah.
So humans are still 25s.
Well, Dark Oath are 28s.
They are 28s now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're human.
But they're like, if you look at the models themselves, they're wide, they're thick. And so they're going to be bigger. I mean, the fact that Clan Rat is like hunched over, human sized, these guys are significantly larger than that. I don't know
if they're bigger than humans though. But I think they could have done better than. I think what they could have done is surprised everybody and given them a 3-up save.
Yeah. Oh, that'd been nice. That'd been dirty.
Like
yeah.
give them heavy armor, and their halberd acts like a arrow deflector kind of thing, like a phalanx would.
Something. Yeah.
And then you give them the bodyguard thing, make them cheap.
And they're not. And that's another thing. They're not cheap.
There you go.
So Clan Rats. Clan Rats are 20 of them for 150. These are 10 of them for 140.
14 points a wound. Yeah.
As opposed to 7.5.
See, I think like 10 to 12 points a wound would have been nicer for them.
Or if they were just 2 wound models and they were like...
Or if they were 2 wounds.
170, 180. That'd be fine. Like, that would be absolutely fine if they were just a little more durable.
Yeah, because now they'd be like your orc...
Yeah.
Whatever.
They're like orc boys.
Brutes. Whatever the
brutes
standard...
are the big ones.
What's the standard ones now?
The
Ard boys?
Yeah.
Like Chaos Warriors-ish. But not as durable.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So interesting. But also, they could change that. It's not locked in. They could absolutely change those kind of things.
Well, that's the other thing is we know nothing's ever forever.
So, but we've seen some of the new stuff's data sheets, war scrolls. I know we saw Visit Scour's full one.
Oh, really?
Which, yeah. So they give a little bit of his rules in the Warcom article, but we've seen the full one.
Okay.
And I can read off a little bit of it to you here.
How does he sound?
He is 15 wounds, 5-up save. He's a priest character.
He's naked.
He's naked. 5-up save. He does have a 5-up ward as well, which is fine.
He's a greater demon.
He is a priest, so he's priest too. He is fighty as shit, which I think is wild. He's way fighter than any of the other Vermin Lords, which is surprising to me. So most other Vermin Lords have like a 3 damage weapon, 6 or 7 attacks at 3 damage. He has 6 attacks at D6. And crit mortal.
So chance for spikes high and low, unlike our Audacity software.
Right.
But crit mortal.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, that's on the hit.
Yeah.
So when you roll that 6 to hit, you don't even have to roll a wound. That just becomes mortal, save it to the end. Yeah.
So pretty great. He has his Death Frenzy Prayer ability, which he has in the lore, which gives actually it's 2 different abilities in one. So he can either target a friendly or an enemy. It's a debuff to an enemy if he chooses them, and it's a buff to a
That's super neat. The flexibility.
It's a fight twice ability on a friend, and it's a -1 to attacks characteristic on an enemy. So very flexible, very good.
That is very good.
So
you can make a unit like Chosen or Varangard, or you make an opponent's enemy suck or army suck.
It's pretty good. And as far as I can tell, I think it's just infantry, which means like rat ogres and stuff like that. Probably your best targets for an ability like that. He has an ability that is just it's not a rampage, but it acts like a rampage where you just units in combat with him just take mortal wounds.
And also for people who don't know, non-fighting combat abilities typically happen before
they all happen
fighting.
before the fighting. Yep. The fights are chosen.
And the only exception I can think of is like if anything says if they did damage or whatever, heal something.
Sure.
But otherwise,
a lot of those are at the end of the turn.
It'll say end of the turn or end of the because otherwise non-fighting combat abilities happen before combat.
Yeah. And his is special because it's not a rampage, so we can do a rampage in addition to this, and it's every enemy unit within engagement range of it. So he could Nova out lots of mortal wounds before anyone gets to swing, which is pretty great. He also has his actual rampage ability that he has is a debuff to an enemy unit. Unit within combat of them on a roll a dice on a 2+ for the rest of that turn. They are both -1 to hit and wound, and they're -1 to hit and wound.
I think he was asleep and he did a freak out wake up.
So his actual rampage ability is on a 2+, he affects a unit. They are -1 to hit and wound, but all their attacks must target him. So he taunts them. With him not being very durable, that's kind of a problem because he could be completely killed by that ability.
Right.
But it's it's still a nice, you don't have to do it. It's a nice ability. And then in addition, once per battle for a turn, he can reroll his chanting rolls.
Okay.
So it's it's pretty decent.
But reroll and
yeah,
that's pretty great.
So he's pretty good. We also saw what the weapon profile for the galvanizer looks like, that new lightning cannon gun.
Okay,
We've seen what that does because there's a warlock with that gun, and then there's a weapon team that has 3 models with that gun. And so the galvanizer on the warlock galvanizer has an ability called a warp volt obliterator. Not a warp lightning cannon.
Nope.
A warp volt obliterator. It's an anti-cavalry weapon, which a lot of these are. So +1 rend against cavalry models. Crit 2 hits, like most lightning guns are. That it can explode from multiple hits.
Yeah.
It's a 18-inch range, 2-shot, 3s, -2 D3 damage.
-2.
And again, -3 against cavalry.
That's huge.
Pretty good.
Because a lot of cavalry are on that 3-up.
Yeah.
That knocks him out to
So he's
6.
got a flat number of attacks, but his big thing is he buffs the units of other warp volt weapons nearby.
Oh.
Which is great. So his 2 abilities are Lightning Master. This is only once per battle ability.
This feels like Icket Claw, like how he plays in Total War.
Yeah. So once per battle, you can pick a friendly Warp Volt Scourger unit, which is the lightning cannon gun, to be next to him, and you set their number of shots on their guns from 2d6 to 10 per model, once per game.
So instead of an average of 7, 10
so instead of
flat.
20, so it's 21 shots on a unit average. It's just 30 flat shots.
Yep.
You guarantee that 30. So it's that's pretty good. Once per battle, But then he's also got an ability where he kind of Novas the lightning cannon he shoots in addition. So, and this one's weird because you could have multiple of these guys, and I think they can all use it. Because it doesn't say anything about
army.
Once per army, once per turn, nothing like that. Pick an enemy unit that had any damage points allocated to it by this guy's gun on a D3 roll on a 2+. Units within that target's combat range take the D3 mortal wounds, basically.
So you shoot them, and then that unit that gets hit suffers a Nova lightning burst to stuff around
everything
them.
around them takes mortal wounds potentially, and it's that's kind of cool.
Splash damage.
That's a nice little thing. It's the equivalent of a blast weapon, kind of, And then, like I said, the Scourger unit should be 3 models. I think it's how. I don't think they're one-man units. I think they're 3-man units. We'll see though. I guess when we see the book, I'm not gonna. Don't quote me on that. I thought they were weapon teams, not 2 guys as a weapon team. But we'll see. Because they don't define that stuff.
And not to be confused with the British version of teams, which means lots of.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Not confusing at all. Coming from a British company. Mm-hmm. So the anti-cavalry ability still is on this gun. 2s and 4s, -1/1, 10 shots, like we said, or 2d6 normally. they have an ability like every weapon team where they can just hide in clan rats. So as long as there's only one weapon team near a unit of clan rats, they can hide, and they can't be targeted by shooting attacks outside of 13. Which is like a nice way to save your weapon team from being like shot from across the battlefield. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that we've seen this theme of the clan rats just scuttling around everywhere, eating up damage for stuff, which is fine.
It's good. Yeah.
Totally expendable.
We also saw the new Warp Grinder, which is significantly larger than the previous weapon team Warp Grinder.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about it. It's like, well, if it's on a much bigger base, are its stats going to be better? Is it going to have more damage output? Is going to be like, they talk about it like grinding through reality and shooting like short range lasers from the crystal. Like, what is that going to look like in the game? Because I don't know if they ever revealed that part of the lore of the weapon. I don't remember that.
Know.
But yes, the answer is yes. All of those things are in effect here. So now the Warp Grinder team is an 8-wound model, which is already like, dang, that's tanky, with a 4-up save. So it's basically a Doom Wheel. It doesn't move quite like a Doom Wheel, but it's got those kind of like core stats of a Doom Wheel. The ability that it has is the same tunneling ability, where it can bring a non-monster unit into the tunnels with it, and then they show up on the battlefield. This time, though, it's a random chance of it happening, and if it happens, you can choose an isolated unit and just be in combat with them. You can like come from off the table into combat with them, which is insane. But the biggest thing is its weapon profile is hilarious. It is its melee weapon has the claws and knives of the crew, D6 attacks at 4s and 5s, no big deal. But its drill is now D3 attacks in combat, 4s to hit, 2s to wound.
Like a monster.
Rend 3, damage 5.
Flat 5.
Just why? Flat 5 damage.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Like that is so funny.
Not much so would survive it, I suppose, if it goes through the earth.
Yeah. Hilarious. So that is that. We got the full data sheet for Critic Foulblade, which is the new named Storm Vermin character. We saw most of what he does. So he has that demon weapon. He's got a pistol like most warlords do now. His aura ability is specifically for Storm Vermin. It's a passive. +1 to wound for Storm Vermin that are wholly within 13 inches of him. So it's a decent aura, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good effect. He has his Doomfang that lets him not do commands but strike first, which is always great. The only other thing he had that I don't know if they talked about is that he's got the ability to when he issues orders, he has got an order that allows him to do 2 units can receive the benefits of 3 claw steps ahead, which is one of their army rules, onto 2 units instead of 1. And so it's like, okay, that's the thing that lets them just like reposition and move around out of phase, which is a really good mechanic. That's one of the best mechanics that Skaven have, is that ability. He lets Storm Vermin do it twice, or 2 of them do it instead of just 1. So, neat. And then the other one we saw that didn't have rules for was the Brood Terror, the big guy.
Yep.
He might be a little expensive for what he is. I remember back when they first had points, the Hell Pit Abomination was similar to this, where it was like, okay, it does a little bit, but it's way, way too expensive for what it does. The Brood Terror is 300 points throughout the game, which already is like, all right, that's a little pricey. I don't think it's extortionately expensive. It's not 450 points or something. 300 is a lot. It's a big investment. It is 12 wounds with a 5-up save for 300. Already that's a little bit like, okay. It must do a lot then. Well, it does a little bit. So it does have pretty decent shooting, surprisingly. It has a Warp Flame Scourger, which is a Warp Lightning, or a fire cannon. Anti-infantry, so it's around 2 against infantry. 4s, 2s, D3 damage, 2d6 shots.
Yeah.
Which is like...
It's going to melt some MSU, though.
It's going to melt some infantry. Its melee weapons are Crit Mortal, with its Chain Flail, 5 attacks, 4s, 2s, -2, 3. So
that's pretty good.
Put it on edge, and then it also has 3 attacks with its like
extra limbs.
Its Packmaster attached has 3 attacks at 4, -1, 2, which is fine. It regenerates D6, which I think for 300 it should have been like flat 6, something like that to keep it alive, because D6 is That's so swingy. D3 plus 3, whatever. Something more reliable. And then its other ability is a once per turn ability. So if you have more than one of these, you can't do it for more than one. It's just an aura, basically, on a 2-up for the rest of the turn, -1 to hit for all attacks made by enemy units while they're within 6 inches of this unit. Which, again, is pretty good, but it's like...
But you're going to... That's very... Because you're going to move him center.
Yeah.
Where I think maybe he might be too expensive. I'm not even mad at the heal D6 because I know for fluff reasons what they're thinking is Skaven mutations are themselves unstable.
Right.
But D6 is not as good as, say, heal 3, which some things have.
Right.
So I don't think that should have been factored into his cost. It should have almost been free, and they probably did factor it in.
Right. So 300, I think, is high. 250.
Yeah. Now what? Now what
maybe?
does the master molder or whatever do for him, or whatever that new one is?
Not a lot.
Because he's keyword molder, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He might be only keyword molder. I saw him earlier. Give me 1 second, see if I can pull that up. He does a little bit. The master molder. Oh, I thought I found it. I did not.
I did not.
I think it gives... All he really does is give a moldered unit +1 to charge.
Oh, so it's the old
the
old whip guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That we used to use with
I'm pretty sure that's really all he did. Oh man, I swear I saw it.
What does the Brood Terror move?
6. So
Okay.
not quick. I still like the idea of the Hell Pit Abomination better, I think. Mostly because there are some army rules out for some of the regiments, and they're kind of funny. Especially the Molder one, because you could like choose to blow up your Molder creatures.
Yeah.
Like willingly. And it's hilarious. Let's see, where is it? Rampaging Demise is the ability for Thanquil's Mutated Menagerie. That's his Army of Renown, specifically that one they showed off, which is really funny. So if you want to play Thanquil and Bone Ripper, he's got his own special like molder.
Well, so like Abraxia, you can play him just on his own,
right?
Or you can do an Army of Renown, which is like a pre-built.
Yeah.
You got to play this.
So you are limited to Thanquil, Master Molder, Rat Ogres, Hell Pit Abominations, Brood Terrorists, Storm Fiends. You cannot include any other regiments renowned or faction terrain. So they don't get gnaw holes.
Yeah.
But like that's an army I'd play the shit out of. Just all Rat Ogres. That's hilarious.
That's like right up your alley there.
Very funny. But one of his abilities is hilarious. Rampaging Demise is what it's called. You would pick a non-hero mutated menagerie monster. So you're bringing
which they'll have that keyword, yeah.
The unit gets strike first for the rest of the turn, but at the end of the turn, it's destroyed.
Blows up, yeah.
When it blows up, before it's removed, roll a d3 for every enemy unit within 6. On a 2-up, it takes that many mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So it like if it's gonna die,
it's not even just within its combat range. Right. It's or within 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's just funny though is if you give it that ability and like the enemy kill it, it still blows up because it says it is destroyed.
Yeah.
Period. When this unit is destroyed, so not when it's destroyed in this way.
Right.
It's just when it's destroyed, it has this buff on it. It will explode and deal mortal wounds and everything around it. But the only issue is that like if you choose something like a Hell Pit Abomination and you give it this ability is not a I guess it's technically a rampage, even though it comes from the army. It's a rampage that they cannot then do more rampages. So like the rampages that they have built in that are very good, they couldn't use after this.
Right.
I feel like it's a nerf to the Hell Pit Abominations, but it's a buff to like the new Brute Horror because it's going to blow up and die.
Yep.
Dies, which I think is fun. But blowing up a 300-point monster that may have survived the combat feels really bad too. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Yeah, I can't find the Master Molder thing. I don't remember where it was. I remember it was underwhelming though. It was not. It was not like heal a bunch. It wasn't. I don't know. +1 to charge is all it really was. which is fine. One thing they did do, which I think is interesting, is that you know how they said they were cutting all the Underworld's warbands? Well, that was a lie.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. They are including in this book a war scroll for a unit called the Plague Pack.
Yeah, that Clan Pestilence little group.
Yeah. Well, they used to be an Underworld's, or maybe they still are, an Underworld's warband.
Mm-hmm.
But they've lost their unique name. So maybe
Gotcha.
maybe you can even run more than one of them. I don't know. But they lost their unique name and their lore. They'll probably be powered down a little bit, but it does say that there is a plague priest in the unit of the Plague Pack that I assume would get prayers from the pestilence and everything. So even though they lost their plague priest character, here is a way for you to get prayers out through a unit. They also did the same thing with one of the most recent Stormcast one in the Stormcast book. There's a war scroll in there called the Storm Coven, which there was a 3-man unit.
Right.
It was Domitan's Storm Coven. It was 3 wizard. It was like a 3-man wizard warband that were very powerful. They were very good, actually. I really liked them. But they have lost their uniqueness, and there'll be like a unit in there now. Which I think if that's the way they bring back the warbands, I'm on board. Because they're not completely invalidating all those units like we thought they were going to be, you know?
Right.
Because there were some really cool ones that were recent. They were new. That was like...
Well,
sucks that it's like...
And Underworlds itself moves on. It rotates in seasons like a video game, like Magic the Gathering, whatever. And so... So yeah, those models then essentially, while all new in design, just became useless.
Right.
I don't like active ones, I guess, being in the game. But if they're going to do this and say, we don't want to make the models useless, and so when they're retiring out of Underworlds, here's how you play them in AoS. But
I think they're doing the opposite of that. Because they're not introducing the old warbands into the game. They're straight up retiring those. It's the more modern ones that they're giving rules for in AoS. It's like the newer ones. Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah,
that is weird.
Yeah, because like those two at least were confirmed. I mean, I assume it would be something like maybe one of the Dark Oath ones when Slaves of Darkness comes out, and it had that wild pack, the wild spirit pack or whatever. I wonder if they would get rules in the new Slaves of Darkness one to kind of bolster out, because the Dark Oath don't have any wizards at all. Well, that warband has a wizard in it. So I don't know.
Gunner's group does.
Gunner does have a wizard. Is it a wizard or is it like a seer? Does it actually spell cast?
It's Wizard 1.
Okay.
If what's his butt's alive. Like one of the guys.
So that's the only wizard then. So this would be a second wizard.
That's the only Dark Oath wizard.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very interesting. I mean, I don't care about whatever they do. Everything is fine to me. You know, I like the idea of having more ways to play and not restricting that kind of thing. So, I don't know, whatever. I also just like painting. So, if things just became painting projects or proxies or whatever, then that's...
Well,
that's
and using models as something I'm fine with. I wish they would do the more ways to play, but within the game proper and not, here's a thing from our other game you can shoehorn in. Because that actually, in my opinion, was one of the reasons why Warcry at first didn't seem good, was it was like, hey, we've made 6 completely unique warbands that are designed for the game of Warcry. By the way, here's the rules for all regular AoS stuff, and it is straight up better than all of our unique Warcry warbands.
And guess what? They are only reinforcements for one army.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was initially. It's like, here's 6 or 8 warbands just for Slaves to Darkness.
Yep. And they all had the same stats originally. It's like 4s, -1.
Yeah.
Do. With no special rules. Yeah, they've been showing off, I guess, bits and pieces here. The Doomflayer looks like...
Yes, I haven't seen the Doomflayer yet.
We know it does mortal wounds on the charge.
Yeah.
Mortal damage on the charge. Which, obviously, it should.
Yep. I mean, it's a shock cavalry type of thing. I mean, and it is cavalry. I mean, let's put that out there. Even if it doesn't have the keyword cavalry, it should be. You know, because
it's a chariot. It's cavalry. It's Skaven's version.
Yeah.
Their weird technology. So that's super exciting. It was exciting at first to see the new Skaven stuff in Skaventide, then to see the Battle for Hell Reach thing, or Hell's Crown, whatever, go the Skaven's way,
Right.
then to get the preview of all their models, which they somehow showed in 8 minutes total,
Yep.
and then now the previews that we've seen of their Battletome looks pretty fun. So hopefully they'll be.
But it does seem like
blast.
it is fun. Like that's kind of the best way to put it. Is it's like this isn't some redesign that's going to completely blow the previous one out of the water. It doesn't add so much that it's like this is the new power, the new powerhouse army. It's like no. I still feel like Skaven still loses to Lumineth or Idneth Deepkin.
Oh, maybe
like those kind of armies. Like they still those ones are still very strong. I don't think this is like setting a new bar. For power level.
In Warhammer 40k 10th edition, they kind of did that where they promised that one of the things they worked hardest on was the idea of codex creep.
Right.
And they stuck to it because some of your strongest armies in that game still don't have a codex.
Right.
And I think in Age of Sigmar we'll see that too. A Battletome will come out. It doesn't mean if you're still stuck on an index, you can't play until however many months from now when you finally get your book.
Right.
I think it just gave them more variety, is all the Battletome's given them. Here's more stuff you can do, but it stayed at this power level. Yeah.
Now, there is like the potential of power increases when someone does get an update, but usually that's through like making units useful. And so now it's like all of a sudden an army's got all of its units that are useful. It's like, whoa, this army got way more powerful. But like I feel like the top end of the power doesn't go up. It just becomes more generally useful.
And I think the general population tends to focus on two things with regards to that. When something is that was not used before, now is, they assume that means the whole army got exponentially better, and it didn't.
Right.
Because we're seeing something across the table that we didn't before. This sucks. I hate playing against it. I'm not prepared. I got beat by it. I got gotcha'd by it. Or they only focus on something that they lost. And it's not even usually a loss. It's like, no, that rule was stupid. It was fixed. So, well, we lost this ability. Now our whole army sucks.
It's like, yeah, but it kind of does the same thing as it used to. It's just cleaner now. It's like, yeah, well, took away all the flavor.
And even though 12 of my units got straight up better, this one thing changing means I can't play the same way I've always played.
The flavor one, though, just gets me every time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, so what does this ability really do? It's exactly the same as this one? Okay, it has the same text now. Well, it's less flavorful now. Because you had to roll through more gates before. Now it's less flavorful because they took away the gates. Now it's just, here's the thing it does.
Well, or their flavor argument is like, they can't build a bear as much, maybe.
Right.
And it's like, well, did it take away flavor from people to say, instead of your chapter, faction, house, whatever, not get its own unique set of rules, but they gave you the ability to feel like that one, but you can play whichever units you want.
Yeah. And you can play whatever way you want.
Yes.
It's like, I'm playing Raven Guard, sure, in spirit.
Yep.
But I'm not locked into playing that detachment.
With that specific rule.
I could play the Ultramarines detachment.
Right.
The normal, like, Codex Astartes one, and still be Raven Guard.
Yep.
And it's like, that feels like more flavor to me.
I don't,
you know what I mean?
Because,
like, come on.
Because in that example, every Space Marine chapter, or every Orc clan, or every Lumineth, whatever, they're capable of fielding the same units and doing the same thing. Like, in the spirit of, you can make them look how you want, and yes, you can lean into units that are more associated with them, but you do have access to everything. So they actually gave you more ways to play your favorite thing.
Yeah.
So that locked in made them feel more flavor. Rant.
I know.
But yeah.
Yeah. But it's a positive thing is the thing.
Yes.
It's like, yes, we're ranting about this, but we're more ranting about the ranting.
Correct.
Sorry, but like...
The no winning with people on both ends.
Yeah.
And
it's just a little exhausting, you know?
I think cleaner rules are better no matter what.
Yeah.
For casual players up to the most competitive, cleaner rules are better. Getting rid of extra unnecessary gates are better. And so it's not a dumbing down when they simplify. It's like making more sense. Because now, like, we've noticed, even at Iowag, the tournament that we hosted, 68 players or whatever at this thing, GT level event, and there was like a round where players went to time.
Right.
The games just go quicker now when rules are cleaner. And that's in 40K, where the rules are pretty heavy compared to most other game systems. I mean, AoS, I don't know if anyone ever goes to time.
I don't know.
And it's not because
I don't know how you would.
And it's not because people wipe each other out.
Right.
It's like, well, when you condense the rules down, when you make them a little sharper, and you know the who, what, when, everything can happen, then it's the game speed just moves faster.
Yeah. Well, it also makes for, I feel like, a more pleasant experience because you're not spending all day playing. Especially if the game's not going well for you or your opponent. You're not locked into playing for 4 hours.
And even within that round, you're not locked into the fact that, like, well, the deployment phase took my opponent 38 minutes.
Right.
Now all that happens quicker because it's easily defined and you do your train and blah, blah, blah.
Or like if there's a game that you're clearly going to lose, it feels really bad to concede on turn 2 or 3 when you've got 3 more turns to go.
Yep.
Then it's like, okay, well, the game would have lasted longer, but I gave up because I didn't want to sit through a 4-hour game of me just losing.
Of my opponent playing by himself. Right.
And so, like, it's just flat out better experience.
Yep.
You can play more. You can get more games in. You can get, I feel like, more games in places that you wouldn't normally have been able to because the round is shorter. Like. It's just superior. Like it's just a better way to do it now.
Well, and the objective system that they've worked towards in both games have made it so there's stuff you have to do every turn instead of, well, I'll spend my first 2 turns trying to kill my opponent and then worry about it. It's like, yeah, but you're going to miss out on 20 points or whatever you got to score. And we saw that even at Nova. The results for both Age of Sigmar and 40k come in, and it's like, in those final rounds, those games were razor thin margins for the points. That means it's more engaging. You're interactive for all 5 turns.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's great. What else did you notice in the last week for results for tournaments? Did you keep your ear down to the ground on any of it?
I think some of the foam has started to float to the top in both game systems. In terms of, I mean, for one, the meta in both are pretty healthy. In Age of Sigmar, I think Nova gave us our first look at maybe what's settling at the top right now. It looks like Nighthaunt, maybe. The winningest army on average, though they didn't win the tournament. It was taken by a Disciples of Tzeentch player.
Okay.
With what sounds like a difficult list to pilot well, but kudos to that guy for doing it for 9 rounds or whatever.
Right. Yeah, because it was... I can't imagine playing that many games in one weekend.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and but Nighthaunt seemed to be making their way to the top, and in 40k it's all things chaos. We had Chaos Space Marines themselves, which between the 2 highest placing lists fielded an entire 1 squad of 5 Chaos Legionnaire Space Marines.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the quote Chaos Space Marine Army.
Yeah, fields War Machines and Cultists is pretty much what it. Yeah. And then Thousand Suns and World Eaters all posted really good results. So Dark Powers winning, doing well over there. But then we had Tau, Tyranids, Necrons also in that top 8, and then right behind him was like some Votan. So I don't know. I think 40k might be in a pretty, everything's fallen in that 10% range. AoS, we're getting our first idea of where stuff sits.
I mean, Gut Instinct for Nighthaunt is like, they're fast. They are very durable because they have a 4-up, 6-up.
The ward is surprisingly durable everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and then also just the straight up, I don't care what your rend is always been a powerful ability.
Yeah.
And it continues to be. Especially with all these like conditional things where it's like, I'm really good at punching through specific types of units, and like Nighthaunt, like I don't care what kind of unit I am. Like, and again, I think part of it is that.
Well, you said something there. So like, it's funny is the other Death armies, as well as a handful of the Chaos armies, have units that faction wide also have wards and can hit, but Nighthaunt also have the speed. Their save is unmodified.
Right.
And then all of their weapons also typically rend.
Yeah.
And that in combination.
And I think Nighthaunt's just army-wide ability is auto wounding when they hit on 6s.
Oh. They've
got crit auto wound, which is like across the board. So that's rough.
So they really don't have like bad targets for their stuff most of the time. And we watched where an army that at first looked like it was going to be really powerful in the Ogre Maw tribes, and they are very good. Mm-hmm. But the Ogre Maw tribes trade abilities and synergy for raw stats. So they have lots of health, lots of damage,
Right.
But they run into Nighthaunt and have a problem. In that all my guys wear T-shirts, all my rend does nothing to your Nighthaunt.
You negate more than half of my damage.
Right.
I negate none of yours.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it ends up like this bad trade situation where the Nighthaunt can outmaneuver them and can trade up on their big units of gluttons and whatever.
Right.
And so that's an awkward matchup. Now I'm okay with their rock, paper, scissors-y trying to have stuff fight each other. I guess Disciples do okay against Nighthaunt. But, but I think Nighthaunt, they might get looked at. I think GW will look at, hey, 2 of them top-aided.
Yep.
They had the highest win percentage on average.
I mean, every ghost doesn't need to have a 4-up save. Maybe they got some ghosts that have a worse save than that's unrendable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you could vary it up a little bit. Oh, you're not as powerful of a ghost. You don't have as good of a save.
You could even have some of them that are dash ward 6 or something like that. Like where that's the only thing they get is the save against damage.
That'd be interesting. That'd be really interesting.
But keep them cheap and then But otherwise, it was looked like it was a blast. You had a lot of representation. Some of the ones we have called out didn't do well. In the top 32, I couldn't find Blades of Corn, which surprised me because they seemed decent.
Right.
There was not a Caradron Overlords.
Which that one is surprising to me.
In fact, I think they have the lowest win rate so far. And it might just be because they do nothing when they get touched.
Right.
I think when stuff gets into them,
they've massively changed how the embarking on the ships work, and so it really does not protect the occupants at all because you pick up the unit and you put it back on the board somewhere else next to the ship, and so they're not protected.
Right.
You know, and so the dwarfs are just not. They're not durable, and so with a limited roster that the Caradron have, plus their jack of all trades. They don't have any dedicated really melee units. The Arcanaut company are not good. They fill 3 roles. They are your battle line units. They are skirmishy units, and then they're your cheap fodder. They do all 3 of those things, and they're not great at any of them.
Right.
You know, and so it's what dedicated melee unit does Caradrons have for a melee-focused game? They've got the Sky Pike Balloon Boys,
which are units of 3.
Units of 3?
Yeah.
No.
And they're not to the level that. So monstrous infantry are good right now in a lot of armies, and they're units of 3, but they do so much more than those guys do.
Right.
So what I was thinking is if they looked at Leagues of Votann where you have your Berserker units, you could give the Caradron something, even if you want to say it's a gun technology or harpoon technology or whatever, but make it so they can fight.
I mean, why not? I could see them going in the route of they've got the dirigible technology, they've got the Endrin harnesses that the characters have. If they combine the 2,
going full fluff to your people,
and maybe made more guys like Grugnason, right, and give them exosuit flying. Tough, heavy hit, hard hitting melee guys,
spiked boots and fist or something.
Yeah, anything like that, or they've got mechanical familiars drillbeak birds and stuff. What if they just went beasts? They're just literally mechanical monsters, giant birds that are just made of metal that fly around and they drill beak people and stuff. Whatever, something. Give the army something to apply that pressure. You know?
Yeah, and I don't think it'll take much. They do need a larger roster.
Yeah.
That's a thing with some of these
because they've got 3 units basically outside of the boats and everything. They've got 3 units. Normal guys with axe and pistol. They've got the balloon guys of the 2 variants. Either chainsaw, power fist. They've got chain fist or the spear, and then the third one is the thunderer. I'm a heavy infantry shooting unit that doesn't really have that high of output. It's that's your roster. That's not great. Not enough.
And some of these newer armies where they've started from scratch and AoS with them, that'll come over time where they expand their. We know Sylvaneth hasn't shown up well, and then Maggotkin of Nurgle have not shown up well. I can't speak much to Sylvaneth, but with Maggotkin, we know their Spearhead is phenomenal. In a match play game, their issue seems to be it takes really long to get their diseased mechanic going, and then they're slow enough on a big table that I think the opponents get enough time to kill the stuff they need to or score, and then the Maggotkin are hoping for turn 4 and 5 to go real well, which just isn't good enough, I think, currently. Because stat-wise, I don't think that's the issue. I think their stuff has good stats. But
they might have some of the best stats they've ever had.
Yeah, and it's just slow moving. Their mechanic takes too long to get going. They can't score. And then Sylvaneth, I can't speak much to. From the sounds of it, it's their tree or their woods mechanic is just kind of derpy now.
Yeah. Well, because you can just it's almost like a penalty. You set up a tree, you set up a forest. Well, the enemy can now charge that forest and gain distance on you. They can it speeds up the enemy.
It's the old bumper charge. Like you used to charge something that you couldn't kill with Harmagants to get the extra movement.
Right.
And it's kind of that, but you can kill it.
And then you can kill it. So not only is your trees being destroyed, which you need, it's also putting the enemy closer to you and giving them better presence on the board. That's man, that's rough.
And their stuff's pricey.
And their stuff is pricey because they factor in a lot of these movement shenanigans into their price that you can't use because your trees are either contested or destroyed.
I know. They need to find something in between, because I was not a fan of how for several editions they just had free teleport.
Yeah.
We had a game that we were literally locked out of as a team because they just teleported to our side.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a fan of that. I know there's people who loved that autopilot win and miss it, but
that was an Adepticon scenario we lost in the top of 2.
Yep.
Because as soon as you captured all 4...
Without a single model dying, by the way.
So as soon as you captured all 4 objectives on the battlefield, the game immediately ended. That was the scenario. So that's why Adepticon doesn't do their own scenarios anymore.
Yeah, they were bad at that.
But it was, you capture all 4 objectives and you win. Well, Sylvaneth blocked us out with trees, teleported to the objectives, held the objectives.
Instant win.
Instant win on top of 2. That was not a fun game.
Nope.
Later in that same tournament, there was staggered deployment. So some units would start off the battlefield randomly. Our opponent randomed a lot of their units off the battlefield. We ran to their board edge and blocked them in so they couldn't get in. We won that game because our opponent's army could not enter the board.
Yeah.
Not great scenario design.
Nope. But as a core game mechanic, I didn't like how the Wildwoods worked.
Yeah.
The teleporting was...
I kind of wish they didn't have this teleport mechanic and they were just cheaper. I don't like the teleport mechanic where you maybe it works as a way to travel outside of battle. You move around the world through these routes.
Right.
Fine. If you use it as a lore ability.
But we're talking about a battlefield.
Fine.
Yeah.
But on the battlefield, it's I don't want them to be able to do that. I would love it if the Wildwoods were line of sight blocking.
I was just going to say
they were
impeded shooting.
If they were malicious, so they could damage the enemies when they were trying to get to them, and they'd swamp back. Look at Harry Potter's little whack tree, whatever that thing was called. Whomping Willow.
The Forest of Fangorn.
Right? A Forest of Fangorn.
Yep.
What's the forest called in Princess Bride?
Oh, I don't remember.
I was going to get another one. Angry forests.
Yeah.
Make it an angry forest. Make it do damage to your opponent. Make it you summon them and it blocks them, and then they can they have to fight the forest.
You essentially make it similar to how some endless spells currently work. The Palisades, which blocks line of sight.
Yeah.
So there's a penalty to shoot, and then you fight stuff that gets close to you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
all it needs to be.
And you could even maybe do bonus to run and charge for Sylvaneth units near it, or they can do a free retreat.
You can get buffs for being near the forest.
Yes.
Right? But I don't like this whole teleporting in between them thing. It's just...
Well, and especially if the enemy can destroy it, because now it does nothing.
So it's both bad when it works, because it's immensely powerful. Before you used to be able to teleport Durthu for free, charge, fight, disappear, and be safe. After fighting.
Yep.
Immediately after you fought, you used to just be able to teleport out.
Yeah.
So you could not be struck back.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's so stupid.
They used to do it with Kurnoth Hunters too. You could just teleport to where you get a clear shot at something and you're too far away from an enemy. Yeah.
Silly. But now it's at the end of the turn, you get to teleport or whatever. But it's just I don't like it. So it either feels bad for your opponent because you just completely trounce them, or it feels bad for you because the enemy charges and kills your forest and you don't get to use it. You know what I mean? Either way, it's a poorly designed mechanic, because in no way is there a safe middle ground where it's just this feels fair and balanced.
No, they're just going to have to ground up that one.
Yeah. And that's sometimes you have to do that, right?
Yeah.
You just have to take it. You got to shred that one, because it's this was an idea that we tried to make work. It didn't work for 3 editions.
Yeah.
Let's scrap it. Just get it going.
The other one that I thought wasn't doing well, but then showed at a few events recently, were the Sons of Behemoth, the big giants, the Gargants. But they've now posted some results. They found a way to play where if they do three big boys, they do Broad and 2 others, and then they play the rest of the points are in Man Crusher Gargants, but in single one-man units.
Broad, Kragnos, a Gate Crasher, and like 3 individual Gargants. Like little
Gargants. And some don't even run the Kragnos. They'll run the Gate Crasher and the Kraken Eater, or the Gate Crasher and the War Stomper. And then they do like 3 or 4 of the regular Man Crushers. They use those to go out, fight MSUs, get objectives, whatever. They use the Gate Crasher to kick objectives around so the opponent can't score them, or they destroy terrain with them.
It's just so funny.
And then Broad himself, of course, just hits like like nothing else. So it's neat. They found some ways to win with that. So good for them. You know what? Good for them.
Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, Stuart.
And their whole mechanic, they pick up guys and eat them.
Yeah.
Which is a neat mechanic.
Yeah. I'm on board for that type of mechanic. I myself personally enjoy picking things up and eating them.
Yeah, I can go pick up some stuff and eat.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.